Over the past 20 years, dozens of cyber attacks have targeted the systems modern life depends on. Power grids, banks, hospitals, airlines, supply chains. In 2015, hackers shut down part of Ukraine's power grid, leaving more than 200,000 people without electricity. In 2021, a ransomware attack forced the shutdown of the Colonial Pipeline, disrupting fuel supplies across the eastern United States. Hospitals have been locked out of medical systems. Cities have had their governments shut down. Airlines have grounded flights. Entire corporations have had their networks erased. And now, as tensions involving Iran continue to escalate, security officials are warning that cyber attacks could become one of the next phases of the conflict. Because when conflicts reach this level, they rarely stay limited to the original battlefield. And the battlefield in today's world is digital. In fact, U.S. government agencies have already warned that Iranian-linked cyber actors may target American networks and critical infrastructure. In a joint advisory, the National Security Agency, the FBI, and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency warned that Iranian cyber actors may attempt to target vulnerable U.S. devices, networks, and critical infrastructure systems. Financial institutions and infrastructure operators have already been placed on heightened alert as tensions escalate. Of course, after years of warnings about digital threats and many other threats, many people have become numb to it all. It starts to sound like white noise. And even if the threat is real, what exactly are people supposed to do about it anyway? The first sign of the next conflict may not be an explosion. It may be something quieter. It may start out to be what we think is a glitch, but is actually the start of a global catastrophe. If that sounds dramatic, consider what has already happened. Over the past 2 decades, cyber attacks have repeatedly targeted the systems modern life depends on. Power grids, financial systems, transportation networks, healthcare systems, government agencies. Most people only hear about a few of these incidents, but the list is much longer, and it continues to grow, across different countries, across different industries, across nearly every system modern society relies on. Most of these attacks barely make the news, but taken together, they reveal something important. The systems that keep modern life working are increasingly under attack. These incidents happened in different countries, at different times, for different reasons. But they reveal something important. The systems that keep modern life working are now part of the battlefield, and that reality is becoming increasingly clear in the current conflict involving Iran. What began as a regional confrontation is increasingly being described as a zero-sum conflict, a fight where both sides believe they cannot afford to lose. And when conflicts reach that point, they rarely stay limited to the original battlefield. And the battlefield in today's world is digital. In fact, U.S. government agencies have already warned that Iranian-linked cyber actors may target American networks and critical infrastructure. In a joint advisory, the National Security Agency, the FBI, and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency warned that Iranian cyber actors may attempt to target vulnerable U.S. devices, networks, and critical infrastructure systems. Financial institutions and infrastructure operators have already been placed on heightened alert as tensions escalate, because in the modern world, you do not always need missiles or armies to disrupt a country. Sometimes shutting down the systems is enough. Because the modern world runs on systems, energy systems, financial systems, transportation networks, supply chains, communication infrastructure. Most of the time, they work so smoothly that people rarely think about them at all. Electricity flows, payments process, flights depart, groceries appear on store shelves, hospitals access records. Everything simply works, until it doesn't. And when that happens, most people assume it's just a glitch, maybe a storm, a temporary inconvenience that will be rebooted and sorted out. After all, systems fail all the time for all kinds of reasons. But lately, with the heightened escalation, the geopolitical tension, the rhetoric coming from world leaders, my first thought now is different. My first thought now is, this could be it. Because when systems fail, the effects can spread much farther than people expect. Airlines stop flying, banks stop processing payments, gas stations run dry, hospitals lose access to critical records, supply chains stall, deliveries stop, and suddenly, the invisible systems that keep daily life running become impossible to ignore. Because when systems stop, modern life, your daily life, stops with them. And that raises a question most people rarely think about. If the systems that power daily life, for whatever reason, suddenly stopped, how long could you and your family wait for them to come back online? A few hours? A few days? A week? And maybe an even harder question, how many people in the general population do you think could last 3 or 4 weeks? Because the truth is, most people have never really had to think about that. The systems have always been there, always working, always returning after a glitch or a storm or a temporary outage. In a way, the systems have trained us like Pavlov's dogs. They always come back. And the systems are very good at that. But the modern world is changing. Conflicts are changing. And the systems that hold everything together are becoming part of the battlefield. Which means the question is no longer whether systems can fail. They already have. The real question is, what exactly are we going to do when they don't come back on?